All right, shalom, shalom. Audio seems good. Shalom, Malachiam. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, for Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Hashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutation to all the Akim who there just doing the work with sincerity and charity and humiliation all across the four winds. To you I salute. To the sincere Aquatim who they are doing their due diligence in the servitude of their husbands, first and foremost, and in the servitude of their households. Shalom. This is the brother Yahshua from GMS Bahamas Camp, back at you with a brief spiritual lesson. And as the title says, you know, the more progress you make, the more difficult things can get. And the first precept what I want to start off with is Ecclesiastes 1 and 18. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. Now, you know, there's wisdom in all things. When you come across things in the world, there's always something to be learned. There's always a lesson to be learned. Like if something was to happen to you, where there be a setback, whether you doing some work or work around the yard, there's always something to be learned. If you look for it, right? When you apply wisdom of the scriptures, all things that you do throughout your day-to-day life, a scripture can be applicable to it. Why I say that? The other day, I was doing some work around the yard, and I was spreading some rocks, you know, and it was this big, huge mound of rocks, right? And I would have the full one or two bucket at a time, and tote the bucket, empty it out, and then once I get a row, I'd be able to rake the rocks in, to spread the rocks. Now the thing about that is that when I initially started, it's the pile here. I just had to walk like 3 feet, drop a pile. Pull the bucket in, walk about another 3 feet, drop a pile. Pull another bucket, walk about 4 feet now, full of pile. And the more it was easy at first, and the bucket I'd say would need to weigh about 15, 20 pounds, right? And the driveway was about, I think it's about 50 feet long, 50 to 60 feet long. And the bucket was only about 15 to 20 pounds. And initially starting out, it was easy, man, pull the bucket right there. But as I progressed, as I moved further down on the driveway, it wasn't as easy no more, right? Because when I could have just left and dropped right there, and I had to walk a bit, drop, walk back, full, walk further, drop, walk back. And the more I progressed on the driveway, the harder it became, the more difficult it became. You see, and when you think about it, when you apply it spiritually, that's how it is growing in this truth. The more things we learn, the more we realize we don't know. You see, the more we progress in this truth, the more sorrowful we become because we realize, wow, I've been doing this way, thought he was doing the right thing, but then all the while, oh, yeah, that's what that means. So the more you learn, the more you increase in this wisdom and this knowledge, the more sorrowful you become because you realize how wretched of men we are in the sinful flesh. You realize how sinful this flesh really is. You know, first coming into this truth, is happy, yeah man, you're on fire. Everything is new. And then you know you learn or you ain't supposed to eat these certain things. You ain't supposed to do this, you ain't supposed to do that. Yeah man, you happy to know these things. And then you learn more. All right, all this time you've been wearing mixed threads. You ain't supposed to be doing that. And then you learn, we are the true Israelites. That's good to know too. And then you learn more, the more you dive into the scriptures, the more you dive into these precepts, you realize how beautiful it is, and then you realize how much more you didn't know, and how much more you want to flip. The Lord really showed mercy on me because you've been doing shit what could have gotten you killed. You see? And again, the more you progress, the more progress you make, the more difficult things can get. You see? I want to read up inside Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. I can go up a few verses, right? We start at verse 14, we can read it on down. The title I have here is Vexation of Spirit, because living in this wicked world really is a vexation of spirit. You see, because the more we learn, and then when we go out in the world and we see people doing the things that is against what we learn, we like it pisses you off. It vexes your spirit because you know what not to do. You try to teach people what not to do, and they won't listen. And you know the consequences what can happen to them. But the more you try to show them, the less they listen. You see? Ecclesiastes 1 and 14. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. So all the things what happen in this world is vanity, vexation of spirit. The more you see, the more upset you get. The more you hear, the more upset you get. You see? The more you the more you toil in this world, the more upset you get. The more you progress in this world, the more upset you get. Why? Because this world is wicked. So, and if you progress in a wicked world, if you progress in like crazy in a wicked world, be mindful of that because you don't want to get so caught up in it that it destroys you. You see? Verse 15. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. So, wicked people, if they wicked and they crooked, they can't be made straight. Can a leopard change their spots? It can't be done. And that which is wanting cannot be numbered. And that wanting means if it ain't there, how could you count it? You see? If you ain't if you ain't growing, you dying. You see? If it ain't there, it can't be numbered. Verse 16, I communed with my own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yeah, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. You see, that's you looking within yourself, right? The more wisdom you get, you grow in this wisdom. Verse 17, and I gave my heart no wisdom and no madness and folly. I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. The more you learn, the more upset you get. You see? And the thing about that is why you also have to be mindful is you could be or you could think you increase in wisdom. You may know this precept, you may know that precept. You could, pull this from off the top of your mind, pull all these different things, right? You know these precepts, you know the history of these things, you know the breakdowns of these things, but you can't apply it to your life. You see, you know the breakdowns, you know the scriptures, but you can't apply it to your life. You don't apply it to yourself. You speak of discipline, but you don't apply it, right? And again, the more you progress, the more you learn, right? The more difficult things can get because you get so caught up in learning this one, learning that, learning this. But you may learn these things, but can you learn the application of it? You know the theory, but do you have the practical? Can you apply it? You see, that is true wisdom. Learning something is one thing, but learning how to apply it is another thing. You see, because you see an examples of that in school. You have people who book smart, like they could riddle off to get A's on every test. When it comes to applying it to real world life, they fail. You see, and that's something you have to be mindful of. The more progress you make, the more difficult things can get because sometimes you get so caught up in you know this, you know that, but and you lose sight of do you of yourself. You see, another precept I want to get in the book of Ecclesiastes again. Right? Ecclesiastes is a beautiful book. Ecclesiastes 12 and 12. And further, by these, my son, be admonished of making many books, there is no end. And much study is a weariness of the flesh. You see that? The more you progress, the more difficult things can get. You see? Now, I'm not saying, progression is bad. No, progression is a good thing. It's supposed to get a bit more difficult because when you use an example of somebody who lift weights or goes to the gym or who runs or whatever have you, right? They may start off only being able to lift like 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, right? And as they progress, the weight gets easier, right? So now they have to increase the weight, meaning they have to increase the difficulty, right? And the more they progress, the more they have to up the difficulty. And that's the same way how the Most High deals with us. The more wisdom you get, the more your faith is built. He sends more difficulty. Why? For you to get stronger. Well, for two reasons. Either for you to get stronger or for you to buckle. You see? If you get stronger, that means you're showing faith. If you buckle, that means you lack of faith. You see? So it's only one or two things. You see? Either you increase in the faith and get stronger, and progress through the difficulty, or you call it quits and say, but you can't take it no more, and then what comes after that? Death. Sirach chapter 2 says, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. You see? Prepare thy soul for temptation. James 1 and 12 say, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he will receive the crown of life that Yahweh has promised to those that love him. Let's get that Sirach chapter 2, right? Let's get that. Read up just start at the top. My son, if thou come to serve Yahweh, prepare thy soul for temptation. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure and make not haste in time of trouble. See that? Constantly endure. And to endure, let's get that word. To endure means let's get it. To endure means to suffer through something difficult, painful, or unpleasant patiently. Let's get that again. To endure means to suffer through something difficult, painful, or unpleasant patiently. It also refers to lasting or continuing in existence for a long time. You see? Suffering or tolerating, lasting, withstanding, to bear. You see, to last, to persist. You have to persist through these things. Right? As you progress, you have to persist through the hardship. You see? Luke 12:47 reads, and that servant which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. Meaning, what is required of you. You know what the Lord tells you to do. When the Lord gives you a message, it'll be in your best interest to bring it forward. Because if you don't, you'll be beaten with many stripes. You see, the Lord may have 10 messages for one man. The Lord may have 2 messages for one man. The Lord may just have 1 message for one man. Whatever message the Lord gives you to bring out, you bring it out. You see, everybody don't have the same lot. Everybody isn't given, like thousands of things to bring out. Everybody a lot different. And who is to say, who are we to question the Lord and how he decides to do it? You see, we could speculate, we could say, but if the Lord have your lot, just okay, I want you to bring this out now, bring it out. The important thing is when he speaks, is that you listen. You see, and this admonishment for the wives out there too. When your husband speaks, you listen. If he tells you a thing, you don't turn around and ask him why or how come or you did this because of don't do that. Do this. The answer should be calm. Just as when the Lord spoke to his prophets, they don't question, they go and do it. You see, when the Lord give us a message to bring out, we bring it out, we don't question it. You see, because that's how you get yourself in problems. Luke 12:48 says, but he that knew not and did commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes, meaning those who don't know the Lord, those people in the world who ain't conscious of the word of the Lord, who don't know the breakdowns as we know, they ain't gonna be exempt from judgment. They ain't gonna be exempt from punishment, but their punishment ain't gonna be as severe as somebody who knows what to do, right? For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. When we look at the sacrifice of Yahushua, right? When we look at the miracles that he did, the many miracles that he did, right? Turning water to wine, healing the soldiers ill, withering away the fig tree, you know, healing the leper, healing the blind, healing the woman with the issue of blood, walking on water, you know, feeding the 5,000. His multitude of miracles written in the book and those not written in the book, right? The more he did, the more that was required of him. You see, whom men have committed much of him, they will ask the more. Yahweh Shai died, ultimately paid the ultimate price for the nation of Israel, for us. You see, how much think you can't even begin to fathom, what it is that he was going through. You see, you're gonna tell me you did this, you did that, you heal all these different people, right? You do all of this, and at the last end, you got killed by the very people you was helping. That's crazy, boy. You know. But again, whom much is given, much is required. The Lord will Yahushua had no man, no being can ever compare to the Lord what was given to him. That's how come when he went through, ain't nobody suffered as much as he did. You see, nobody gained as much as he did. Nobody suffered as much as he did. These little things what we go through in this day-to-day life in this flesh, Yahushua went through many times over these things. You see? And the more he progressed in his ministry, the more difficult things got, the more hate people sent his way. You see? So when people ridicule us in this truth, for doing the work of the Lord, we count it all joy. That's what we are set up to do. This is what is required of us. This is our reasonable sacrifice. You see? So Sirach 2 and 4 says, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state. Endure. When you're going through your hardship, endure it. You see, be patient with it. Have faith. You see, James chapter 1, right? Love that book. James chapter 1. And you start at verse 2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. See that? Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, when you fall into hardships. When you progress in and get the difficulties of your progression. You see, knowing this that the trying of your faith worketh patience. You see that? Sirach 2 and 4, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state. James 1 and 3, knowing this that the trying of your faith worketh patience. The trying of your faith, meaning, let's see how much you can endure. As you progress, let me see, okay, you're getting strong and getting a little easy for you, right? The Lord put a little more weight on you. Put a little more weight on you, a little more weight on you, some more weight. Let me triple the weight this time. You can barely walk, you can make it through. Because the scripture tells you, Lord ain't never put on you more than you're able to bear, right? And as you learn and you get stronger and stronger and stronger, you know what that strength for? When that strength can be, and you can realize what that strength is what you have, when it's time to use it. When Jacob's trouble come around. You see, now you can see how strong your faith is. When our ultimate deliverance come and that weight is fully removed off us, and then you can see what the Lord was preparing you for. You see, you can't see it now. As you're going through the hardship, you don't see it. You see it when it's time to be seen, when the Lord is ready for it to be revealed unto you. You see, James 1 and 4 says, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. You don't need for nothing, you don't want for nothing. Yeah, it seems difficult now. You see, but when you be patient and you keep the faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, you don't need for nothing. You don't worry about nothing. You don't gotta worry about where the food can come from, where the clothes can come from, where this can come, where the job can come from, where that can come from. You ain't gonna worry about them shit. You don't get worry about them shit, but I can tell you that. Because the most I can make sure you straight. You see, you may have a job lined up, the Shabbat right there. You can chance here and go do the job right before the Shabbat. What you can do that for? Huh? Trust the process, have faith. Hey, it can't make it. They ain't gotta know why you can't make it. You can make up something. My vehicle down, they can't make it. They call you tomorrow on the Shabbat, can't make it. After Shabbat, you know what's gonna happen? The Lord can bless you with 2 more jobs, 3 more jobs, 5 more jobs. That's just how the Lord works. All it is just to try your faith. And sometimes again trying the faith, you may lose that job. All this is trying out the faith. Your reward may be to lose that job. Because you never know. That job might have cost you even more later on now. But in all things you give thanks. You see? But again, the more progress you make, the more difficult things can get. But as the difficulty come, be thankful for it. Thank you, Abba Shem Shai, for it. Be grateful for it. You see? Because all it is building you up. There's a saying says, smooth waters don't make a skilled sailor. You gotta go through those storms in order to learn how to sail a vessel good. You see? You can't build muscle without breaking down muscle, right? You can't fill a driveway with P-Rock unless you tote that bucket all the way down, to the very end. And you know what's so interesting about it? As you progress through it and it gets more and more difficult, when you finish and you sit down and you look at the pathway that was paved, or you look at the pathway that you did, when you look at your works, you would look back on it and you would be satisfied. You would be filled with joy when you could look back at the work that you put in. As you put in the work, it's difficult. But once you see the fruit of your labors, ain't nothing could compare to that feeling, you know. But that was just a quick lesson that I wanted to go into. The most I put that on my spirit to bring up, the more progress you make, the more difficult things can get. But with that, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Akar Kadash, Shalom, and the God of the Shalom.